Okay, so a bit of grassroots. I'm sure you all are familiar with grassroots, and they provide free and discounted capacity building service for nonprofits. And here's a bit about CommitChange. We're an online fundraising tool. We actually just launched a very robust CRM, which is very exciting for us. And if you ever just want to test it out, you can get a free account at commitchange.com.
Yep, and we are a partner, just to let everybody know why
Yeah,
grassroots
well, what's the
change.
connection?
Yeah, what the connection between us two is. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the internet and all of its online tools have allowed us to be able to track and monitor the impact of our fundraising efforts. So we are able to get a lot of data and metrics that can easily pinpoint what works, what doesn't work. However, we don't have to forget that behind the fundraising and the funds, there's people, and the people are the ones who connect with you and who ultimately donate to you. So a key thing about storytelling is to understand first why people give. Why do people give? What prompts someone to give or maybe not to give? Well, there's a lot of studies that have been done with this, and I can share these studies with you afterwards. But there's this study, it took place in 2008, and so it showed that people who were spending money on others were happier than those who would spend it on themselves. So they did kind of a test, give money to people and see what they would do with it, and in the end, bottom line, it makes us feel good to do good things for others. Another reason why people give is because they want to be a part of a story. So let's say they read something online about this great nonprofit and all the work they're doing, the impact they're having. Well, people want to be a part of that story too. And related to that is when you see maybe someone shared something of they donated funds to this organization. Well, our peers are giving, so we want to give too. Just think about the recent boom in crowdfunding and peer-to-peer campaigns. Aside from people wanting to be a part of the story, we're also inspired to give when we see our friends and family chipping into a cause. So all of that brings us to the importance of storytelling. We want to feel good, we want to be a part of something big, but I'm sorry, I kind of lost my place. So we want to feel good, we want to do good for others, but before we even think about becoming a part of a cause or donating to something, there must have been a trigger or something that we saw somewhere, and this is where storytelling comes into place. You can have a great cause, you can have an amazing nonprofit doing amazing work, but without a good story that really tells people what you're doing, how you're impacting your community, or how you're impacting other communities, people will be unlikely to connect and want to support your cause. That's why this is so important for us to take into consideration when we're writing all of our content for our website, for our thank you letters, for our mailers. You have to think about the story you're trying to tell. The ugly truth about it is that your cause is not necessarily your story. Yes, you might be an animal shelter, but there is more to that than just saying we help animals. So again, another ugly truth is that donors do not want to hear all the nitty-gritty details about your organization. They want to hear about the social impact you're having. If you're just telling them, well, this is the board, this is what we do, this is how we do it, they can't really relate to it, because most of the work your organization does is not necessarily relatable to your average donor. Yeah, they might know that you need the funds, but they need to see how these funds are being applied, how they can take part of the story. So the $1 that they are donating, they need to see how it transcends. So this is why it's important to share the stories of the people you serve, your supporters, and anyone else involved in your organization that will somehow allow your donor to hopefully create that human connection and trigger the want to donate. Not using storytelling, again, would translate into simply telling prospective or your current donors a bulleted list of your programs. Stories give meaning to these data, to these facts. They provide a bigger picture than just laying out the different programs you have calendared out for your year. It, again, allows for your donor to emotionally create to your nonprofit's impact. Again, if at any point you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me, because I tend just to talk and talk and talk. So what does good storytelling look like? There's what makes a good story. There's various aspects that I laid out to tell a good story. It's just more than just telling, oh, we need to raise funds. A good story is universal, right? A story that transcends any barriers that might segment your demographic. For example, let's say you're an organization that is benefiting Alzheimer's research. You can tell a story not only about the patient that's suffering the disease, but how it also affects the patient's spouse, their children, their grandchildren. Show them how they can too be affected by this particular issue, and how you can help not only the person affected by the issue, but all the people that surround them. A good story is also memorable. Remember, you're using storytelling to truly stand out to your potential donors, so be creative. This is maybe the most tricky part, but that's why we're here, and we can brainstorm on how to be creative to tell good stories. And also, aside from the written part, think about how your readers will see the story, how it'll be presented to them. So you can use photographs, you can use graphics, you can use videos, anything and everything to further engage your reader with the story and truly create an impact. So they can, in the end, they'll be like, wow, this is an amazing organization, it's an amazing cause, and they can connect with it. The more you give them, the more they will be likely to engage and connect to your organization's cause. A good story makes a donor the hero. This is very important. Remind your donor how they can be the true hero for those who benefit for your organization. We sometimes tend to tell the story about our nonprofit and what our people are doing, but ultimately, when you're telling a story, you want to make them the ultimate hero. Tell a story that tells what the decision to donate or not to donate says about the person in that specific moment, and give them the choice to be real heroes. A good story is varied. Don't stick to just one type of story. Mix it up and give your supporters a bigger picture. You can tell stories about your staff and how they impacted one particular person or a particular family. You can one day use images or infographics to tell your story. One day you might be able to tell a long-form story. Just mix it up so your audience is not receiving the same thing over and over and over again. I work in, like I said, in content, and there is so much content out there that readers, donors, just everyone is overwhelmed. So we do try to mix it up and have something that is unique, something that will allow them to engage, something that just stands out of the ordinary. Again, like I said, this is more creative than based on facts and data. Of course, you use data to support your story, but just get crazy with it and create a unique story. So the types of stories you can tell. There are many types of stories. Here are a couple that I've seen in many, many organizations. Of course, there might be a lot more. One of them is overcoming adversities. These are the stories you can talk about someone's hardships and triumphs in an uplifting way. This type of story communicates the importance of the impact of the nonprofit involved. Creating a connection. This again goes back to trying to connect the person who might not be directly affected by the issue, but you just take unrelated subjects and somehow create a connection for them to be able to be like, wow, I should really donate to this cause. It could happen to me. It could happen to my mom. Just here's, again, where the creative part comes in. Just try and get a connection and apply it to a bigger demographic. You can tell a story of origin, and this is the story of your organization's history, and you can showcase your impact and ignite people to continue to support your organization. You've come a long way, and maybe for an anniversary or something, you can create a story of this type and just have a good call to action in the end of why you need their support. A problem-solving story. These are stories that speak of a specific issue or problem that needs to be fixed. And by telling the story, you can showcase how your nonprofit is working towards solving this problem. So again, there is so many types of stories, and like I said, it's not only about the written content. I've seen so many stories with videos that the video in itself is the actual story. So again, I'm hoping that we have some time to brainstorm your specific stories, and then you'll hopefully be able to send them to me, and we can see how we created amazing stories for your nonprofit. Here are some storytelling resources that I wanted to share with you, in particularly the Storytelling Nonprofit. Be sure to sign up for their newsletter. They have amazing tips about creating stories. They are awesome. I am on their blog a lot of times because I sometimes have to tell the story of nonprofits for our blog. We do nonprofit highlights on their mission and the work they've been doing. So it's a really good storytelling resource. So aside from creating your story, I also want to talk about giving your nonprofit a voice. By giving your cause and your nonprofit a voice and sharing impact through your stories, your nonprofit will be able to connect with the donors' minds and hearts. Inspire donors through your passionate, authentic stories. Remember, if you want your donors to give more, you do have to give them more. So give your donors more than your traditional appeal for donations and start telling your stories. I think I want to switch it up a bit and start taking questions or start talking about your nonprofit's particular stories. If anyone has one that wants to share with me.
Sure, I'll get to them in 1 second, but one thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning was that if anybody has anything that they want to, they want to connect with other participants of this group, or you want to talk to us after the webinar, feel free to post to our hashtag on Twitter. The hashtag is GR Office Hours. And then you can talk to us, before, after, or during this conversation. But I have one question before I get to some of them posted. And remember, again, if people have questions, if they want to brainstorm, which is wonderful to be able to actually bounce ideas off of each other, post it into the question pane. But my question was about the hero, making a donor feel like a hero. Do you have any good examples where people have made somebody, the donor, feel like the hero? Because you usually think about the telling the organization story, but get somebody to feel empowered by it.
So this might be a sort of cliche example by this point because we've seen it everywhere. But take the ice bucket challenge that took place last year. People started doing their videos and tagging their friends or nominating their friends so they can donate to the cause. And so the video in itself would make the person feel as the hero, like they are taking part in this. It wasn't simply about sharing a video that told what ALS is and what the foundation is trying to support. It was more of getting the actual donor involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess
it puts the donor as the center.
Yeah, I cannot believe that I had forgotten about that example, but amazingly I had. So who could have? But all right, well, there's one question coming from Kimberly Clay, so I'm going to unmute Kimberly. Kimberly, can you hear us?
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. So I just wanted to know, you talked about planning and managing content. What tools in particular do you use? Do you use editorial calendars? And do you have samples that you can share?
Sure. Well, to manage our particular content, I have a calendar template that I update every a month before the actual content is supposed to go out, and I can definitely share a template of that with you guys. If you want to email me, let me go back to where my contact information was. That just helps me. It has it categorized by, okay, what blogs do we need to write, what newsletters need to go out, and I divide it up by weeks. And honestly, it's very simple. I use it on Google Docs. It's a very simple calendar that just keeps me on track of what I need to do and look back of what I've already done. And I can definitely share that with you if you want to shoot me an email and remind me.
Excellent, thank you. And then I had a second question. Our organization can't afford and does not currently employ full-time staff. However, copywriting and content management is a huge need for us. How would you recommend that we find someone qualified to help with, for instance, our blog, our website, and other written assets?
Well, you know, there are many websites out there to contract freelance writers. And if you don't want to go through a process of going through a complicated website or something like that, even just on Craigslist, I've seen a lot of posting of people looking for blog writers, for website copywriters, and it's not that expensive to do. And honestly, for copywriting for your site, yeah, you might want to get someone more qualified, but for blog writing, who knows your stories and your happenings in your organization better than the people in your staff. So those blogs and those stories can come from you guys. It actually, in the end, it sounds more genuine than having someone else do it. Does that answer your question?
No, yes, definitely. Thank you.
Of course.
And just on top of that, if it's like a copywriter or especially something for like a one-time like writing, sites like Volunteer Match or Catchfire. No, Catchfire has kind of a high cost to it, so it might be kind of prohibitive for people. You can definitely get like, you know, a person to help with, you know, like a one-sheet or an annual report. That might be a good route for you. It, again, probably won't help with like, you know, things that are ongoing, such as blog writing or an e-newsletter or something like that. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Come on, guys, we still have time.
Well,
Anyone? Okay. Do we have another one?
we do actually have another one in here. Let me find them. Kay Pace, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I can hear her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We've noticed lately that many of the grant requests are now asking for us to tell a story either about how their contribution has impacted one of our rescue paths or how it will impact the requesting the grant. Would you write a story for a grant just like you would for your newsletter?
That's a good question. Well, grants require a bit more of formal writing, but I'm of the opinion that if you can make your story sound as, you know, as passionate, as genuine as you need it to sound, you would probably need it to be a bit in a more long form if this is for a grant. But I would take the same approach that you would take when you're normally writing a newsletter. Maybe just have it be a bit longer and include, again, as much content as you can. Like I said, it's not only about the written part, but include as many photographs that can, or infographics that can definitely support your written story. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay.
Anyone have a story they've been working on and they want to maybe discuss?
Well, the next question is coming from Ruth Kersey. I'm just looking for
There we go.
you, Ruth. Ruth, can you hear us? Well, I'll leave Ruth unmuted if she's able to. If she does not have a microphone. Okay, that makes it.
Okay, I can read her question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Can you talk about crowdfunding campaigns and how they might fit with the more traditional mail fundraising campaign or live events? Of course. Well, you can actually combine the two of them. So you can have your more traditional fundraising campaigns, but they can be, you know, like this can be a second layer to it. Maybe when you send out a traditional appeal, you can direct them to the link to your crowdfunding campaign. And maybe if you're trying to raise a lot of fun, this is where technology comes into play. If you're having a live event with auctions and you need them to donate online because that's easier for you, then again, you direct them to the platform of your choice where they can process their donations online and see how their individual impact is creating a bigger impact in the end by crowdfunding.
And we have another follow-up from Kimberly Clay. Kimberly?
Excellent. So I posted, and obviously you can see we are over 10 years old, our organization. We specifically work to prevent overweight and obesity in girls, and have been doing so with 100% volunteer staff during that time, never having paid a single salary. However, that model is not sustainable at the rate of our growth. And so I think that one of our biggest struggles with raising funds to support our mission is our failure to really present a strong story. How do you suggest we change that? Meaning, what are some of the steps that you would recommend that we take from analysis to execution, so to speak?
Sure. Let me go back to the slide in which I talk about the different types of stories you can tell. So, okay, you guys are 10 years old. That is a lot of time. So let's say, you can start with a story of origin. See, take where you were at 10 years ago and where you are now. Grab as many facts and data as you can do, and you can, and as many data as you have, honestly, and just show people what your organization has been able to accomplish all this. So let's say you helped, I don't know, 1,000 girls. Where these girls are at now, maybe they became volunteers after because they believe in your cause because it helped them. Let's say, what other stories you could tell? Create a connection. Speak to parents of these children, speak to the brothers, the sisters, how you can help kids eat better and prevent obesity. You can do an overcoming adversity and take someone's story and their transition and how eating healthier impacted their lives. Does that make sense? I'd be happy to, if you want to email me and we can sort of brainstorm more, but that's sort of on the top of my head how I would go about it. Use as many facts and data as you have, but then again, just write a story that is more human than just numbers.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Of course.
Ruth Kersey had a follow-up question to what you had been speaking about, wondering if there's a fear of repetition.
Yeah, of course. That's why one of my things was to mix it up a bit, and of course that's hard because you guys are dealing with the same issues and the same things over and over again. But that's why there are different types of stories and different types of approaches you can take. You can tell a story of a specific campaign and what that specific impact was, not the overall organization's impact, or you can take one specific person or a family. My advice is to make it as human as possible.
How long?
Talk about people.
Yeah, how long would you suggest in terms of I guess for the analogy I would think of as advertisement. You see a certain ad out there for a set amount of time. How long do you think you should stick with a story and then move on to the next one?
Well, it depends where you're using that story. Say you're using just a photograph with some data on your social media. That obviously doesn't last very much. But if you're sending out a newsletter monthly, then I would change that story up monthly. If you're sending out appeals to donors whenever you're sending them out, change the story, because that's where repetition comes in. Maybe you sent one 2 months ago, don't reuse the same story.
Right, right. But you can keep like the same format, right?
Definitely. You can keep the same format, but you don't want to keep sending the same appeal 2-3 times in a year with the same story.
Sure. Thanks.
I think we have another question.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next one is coming from Larry Cooperad. Larry, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
And did I pronounce I can. And did I pronounce the last name right or wrong?
Close. It's Copperwood.
Copperwood. Okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Members to our organization are the donors. How do you differ writing a story to appeal to people to become members versus appealing to members to donate?
Sure. So if you think about it, it's very different for people that aren't members. They don't see it from the inside of your organization. So you need to present them with what being part of the organization would, what being members would do for them. So this is where placing them as a hero would take place. What the decision of being a member or not says about them at that specific point. They can too be heroes. Versus people who are already members, you can tell them a story of how far your organization has come along, or the impact they, as heroes as well, have been having with your organization. So it's a really great question, because yeah, you have people who aren't members yet and the people who are members, and you can't tell the people who are already members what being part of the organization does for them, because they already are part, but what their continued support does for your organization as well. Does that make sense?
It does.
A bit in circles, but
no, it's good. I think the thing we have with members is some people are reluctant members and others are apathetic to become a member.
Well, yeah, and again, that's hard, but I think telling better stories does help. It's obviously not, your storytelling isn't make or break your fundraising, it's also how you promote it, but a good story definitely is that's engaging and that tells them, you know, about your organization. It's depending on the story you want to tell, but I would definitely take, and it's a great question, because I would definitely take different approaches to people who aren't members versus people who are.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Do you have any more questions?
If we don't have any more questions, we can end it right here. I'll give it another minute.
A couple of minutes, anyone?
Yeah, but if you want to do kind of a quick, wrap up,
a recap?
Yeah, just a quick
Sure.
recap, and then if there's other questions, we can take them after that.
Sure, of course. So I think after this webinar, if you're still thinking about, well, how can I improve my storytelling, I would go back and try to get to know my donors a little better. Where do they engage more? Do they engage more through social media? Do they engage more through email? Do they engage more through just traditional mailers? And then you can start thinking about the stories you can tell better. So let's say your donors engage a lot on social media. Well, you can tell them shorter stories more often, so so they can continue to be engaged with your organization. Say people engage better through your email list or through your blog and website, then I would think of a better way of presenting these stories, and maybe instead of just sending a couple of paragraphs, include a video next time, or include a couple of pictures. So it goes back to who your donors are or who you're trying to target, and that's the very first step I would take to try and write better stories. Again, it goes back to why people give. They want to feel good. They want to be a part of the story. So when you're telling the story, tell them how they can too be a part of this story, and that their peers are giving, so they should too.
I guess I have two last questions for you. And again, if anybody has a question before that or after, we'll get into those. But where do you get inspiration when you're trying to create your stories? Like if you have writer's block, or just can't think.
Sure. Well, let's say I try to have at least a kind of an idea of what I'm writing. So maybe I have just an idea of a topic, or maybe I have a title, and I really just go in and Google it and try to see what other people have written about it. What kind of, maybe I don't have all the facts, maybe I don't have all the data that I want to talk about. So I actually go and read. There's also this great tool that I'm going to share with you, Ben, and maybe you can share with everyone that attended. There's this great tool that helps you create titles, and sometimes they're really silly, but they can sort of give you some inspiration. So you take the topic you want to write about, and it gives you kind of ideas on what that title could be. So that helps me a lot. And again, this is a creative endeavor, so just have fun with it. And again, I'm always here as a reference. If you guys ever have any questions, or if you guys want to brainstorm with me, I'm always available here.
And then my last question is, do you ever borrow from other, not necessarily a similar group, but do you ever borrow ideas from other organizations, or do you try to stay away from that?
Definitely. There are so many great ideas out there, and I do get inspiration from other blogs. If I'm quoting a specific article, I do cite it, but I do definitely take inspiration from other persons and borrow maybe their idea, or not their idea, but their format, or how they presented it, or maybe I wanted to write 5 things nonprofits must know about email, and I only had 4. And someone else has a really good 5th one, then I sort of mold it to fit into what I'm writing.
Right. And then can you give us your email address once more?
Sure. I'll go back to the slide where my contact information is. It's Alessandra, @, @commitchange.com.
Okay. Yeah, somebody had a bounce back on an email they were sending it to.
Oh, weird.
So I will also.
Let me reply to Kimberly.
You saw it.
I just sent it to everyone so they can have it as well.
Great. I see.
Great. Well, anyone else have any last minute questions?
We'll give it another 20 seconds. But if that's it, I want to say thank you to you, Alessandra, for giving us your time and talking about storytelling. And as always, thank you to all of the participants who attended today. We will have the recording go out by tomorrow. And the questions that were asked, I'll have a timestamp to them so people can instantly jump to their question or a question that interested them, so they can quickly go through that. And every single webinar that we've done previously has this. So if you want to check back on any of the other webinars, there's stuff about social media, email marketing. There's a whole bunch. You can quickly go through them and find interesting conversations that we previously had. But thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.